If you were standing at the door of heaven and St. Peter was at the door, what would you say if he asked you why you should be allowed into heaven? I've heard of some atheists who said that they would ask God, "Why did you make it so hard for us to believe you existed?" I've heard of others who've said they will be the ones asking God a few questions. For instance, why did he allow so much trouble in the world? Or more personally, why he allowed them to go through so much trouble. However, the majority of people do believe that death is not the end. When they go to a funeral, they hope their loved one is in heaven. But what would you say if it was you, and you were being asked why you should be let into God's heaven? I know what many would say because they've said it to me when I've asked them. It's said that 75% of British people call themselves Christians. The vast majority of those were christened. As a baby, they were taken to church. The priest said some words and dropped some water on their head, and they were made Christians. This was meant to remove their original sin and give them a new heart. In the end, the parents and the priest believed this simple ceremony guaranteed the child a place in heaven. So let me ask you, do you really think that a ceremony done by a priest is the key to heaven? There are many people who, if they were asked why should God allow them into heaven, they would answer that they were christened, they were Christian. Now, is that what the Bible says? Is it what Jesus taught? As children who have been christened grow up, they may come to their first communion. In the Bible, this simple ceremony is about remembering Jesus and his death. But when it is led by a priest, it is given a completely different significance. He says some special words in Latin, and suddenly the bread becomes the real body of Jesus. It still tastes like bread, and it still looks like bread, but it isn't bread. Well, that's what they say. The wine changes into blood, but it still looks and tastes like wine. But something else is happening too. They say that when Jesus died on the cross, he suffered God's punishment, but it wasn't enough to take away all sin. So Jesus needs to suffer more. And they say that this is what is happening when the priest said those special words. Jesus is suffering all over again. But is this what the Bible says about the bread and wine, and about Jesus' suffering? I am asking these questions because they are important. The only place we can go to find out what Jesus said, what the early Christians did, or what was taught by Paul or Peter, is the Bible. So I'm asking whether these things are taught anywhere in the Bible. It's a serious question, and one that is quite fair and reasonable to ask. None of us are perfect. That's really quite an understatement, isn't it? The truth is that we don't even live up to our own standards, let alone live by God's 10 Commandments. So, when you get to the door of heaven, you are asked why you should be let in. Will you say that, well, you went to confession and did the penances the priest gave you? The idea is this: you have done something wrong, and you must make amends for it. You cannot undo what you did, but you can do a good thing that shows you are sorry, and when you do penance, it also puts some goodness into your account, so that at least you won't have to spend so much time in purgatory. But is that how it all works? Why does it say in the Bible that we are saved by grace through faith, and this salvation, this grace, or this faith is not something that comes from ourselves? We're not saved by our own good works. The Bible says this is so that none of us can become big-headed. But the question we're asking is, what does the Bible say? Does it mention penance? Does it mention confession? One big thing in some people's religious life is the place of Mary. When you go to some church buildings, there will certainly be a statue or pictures of Mary in a very prominent place. Sometimes in an even more prominent place than the crucifix or statue of Jesus. And Jesus is so often pictured either as quite an austere figure or a very sad figure on the cross. Mary, by contrast, is a kind mother who is going to ask Jesus to be merciful. And who would refuse their own mother? Well, that's the argument used. She's even called the Mother of God. So, let us ask, will Mary really be standing next to Jesus at the door of heaven, and when she sees you, because you've prayed to her, she will ask Jesus to let you in? Is that how it works? Of course, there is always the Pope. We're told he's infallible, and that means he cannot make a mistake, but also he cannot lead us astray either. So surely we can trust him. He's also said to represent God on earth, and he's supposed to have in his power all the authority to give forgiveness. There are different ways, of course, of getting that forgiveness from the Pope: confession, attending Mass, doing penance, and other good things, even buying an indulgence. Years ago, this led many to see that if rich people buy their forgiveness, God was not fair. So, is the Pope the one who can be trusted? What does the Bible say? Now, I need to repeat that this is a fair question to ask. If the Bible says we must trust the Pope, then we must. But is that what it says? Do you know what it says? When I am speaking to people about Jesus, they will often say something like, I am an Anglican, I am a Catholic, I am a Baptist. They think that by belonging to their church, they are okay. It's enough. They're part of a Christian group. It will do. It's their way of saying, I'm okay, I don't need anything else. But it especially means I don't need to think this issue through or do anything more. It's enough. I'm satisfied. Yet when I ask them if they are at all sure they will get into heaven, they more often than not say, I hope so. We don't have to wait until we leave this world to find the answer to the question. We have the Bible, we have the teachings of the Gospels, and we have the writings of Peter and Paul. Let me encourage you to look for the answer to this question in the Bible itself. It will tell you why Jesus came, why he died, and how you can be forgiven because of his death. It will also tell you that you can be sure whether you are forgiven and are saved or not. So what could you do? You may wish to begin searching for answers from the Bible by asking us to provide you with a copy of the Bible. We'll gladly send you one in your own language. On this website there is a page where you can listen to it in any one of about 140 languages. But why not read one of the books of the Bible yourself? Mark's Gospel was written by Mark, but it was almost certainly dictated to him by the Apostle Peter. Mark Time is a book with 4 CDs that will help you to read through that Gospel page by page, and the CDs are an audio version of the book. It starts with the words, the beginning of the Gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. So Mark Time is a book with 4 CDs that we send freely to those who are sincerely wanting to be sure about salvation. It contains the whole of Mark's Gospel with a simple explanation for each reading to help you think through the meaning. Whatever your religion is, the place to find out whether it is the true Christian faith is right there in the pages of the Bible. So why not send an email to us asking for Mark Time? You'll find the details on this website, www.thechristiananswer.org.